Hello my friends, this is David. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with what is apparently a booktube tradition with the mid-year Freakout tag. This is where folks in June and July can reflect back on the midpoint of the year on the things that they've read. Most of my reading has come from the very tail end of March onward. Didn't get a whole lot of reading done at the beginning of this year, but I'm making up for lost time. And so I've got some 14 questions here to go through, so let's just get right to it. Best book you've read so far this year. So, best book that I've completed so far this year has probably been, I think, Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. Really good sequel in the Red Rising trilogy. Really enjoyed that one. However, I think there's a contender in the market right now, and his name is Conan the Cimmerian. I started reading this just last night. I don't want to put it down. I'm absolutely enthralled by Conan, and if this continues, we might have a new king at the end of this month for that question. Best sequel I've read so far this year. Well, I hate to repeat myself, but I'm going to. Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. Definitely surpassed the original in all of the right ways. New release you haven't read but want to. I don't really dive much into new releases. I honestly don't even know what's come out this year. So I'm going to pass. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I actually have an answer for this one. There is a volume of Bradbury's novels that will be coming out. I don't even know what the actual edition is called, but they're black and they're hardcover, and it's going to have, I think, 4 or 5 of his novels compiled in there, and it's a very famous edition. They do it with a lot of the big authors, and there's a Bradbury one coming out in October. In addition to that, there is an illustrated Lord of the Rings coming out in October. I'm looking forward to both of those. Biggest disappointment. There's a couple of contenders here. Before I started BookTube, there was a very early disappointment. Norse Myths That Inspired Final Fantasy VII by M.J. Gallagher. My wife got this for one of our friends. I saw it. I was like, read the first little bits. I'm like, okay, this got a good background of Norse mythology, but I didn't really look ahead too hard at what it did after that. I grew up playing the Final Fantasy games, not 7. I've played 7. 7's okay. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I love Norse mythology, so I figured, hey, what the heck? The first part of it was great because it gave a lot of background on Norse mythology. It was all rehashing things that I was already pretty familiar with. The rest of the book, where it actually gets into it, is all just guesswork. Speculation. Well, this is here and that is there, and so this could mean that it's this, which could tie in with that in Norse mythology, and it's like, come on, man. This was disappointing. I'm glad it was a shortish read. If you're a big fan of Final Fantasy VII, you might really enjoy it. But for me, it was not that great. I can already tell you that my next big disappointment might end up being King Arthur and Knights of the Round Table by Antonia Fraser, which makes me very nervous about the Robin Hood that comes next. It's not a bad retelling by any means, but it's trending to be a 3-star, like middle of the pack. It's not great. It's definitely one you could pass over. It's not doing anything new, and the twists that it makes in there are just Biggest surprise. Well, one of the biggest surprises is here with that Conan. But the genuine biggest surprise I had was The Forever War by Joe Haldeman. I had zero expectations going in. I expected it to be just your standard vintage sci-fi romp, and it far surpassed every one of my expectations. If you haven't read it, please do yourself a favor, go check it out. If you like sci-fi at all, you will probably enjoy The Forever War. Favorite new author? I'm going to say that it might be Robert E. Howard. There's a lot of different books in this kind of a collection. I've got 3 of them, the 3 different Conan ones, but there's like Cull of Atlantis and a whole bunch of other from Robert E. Howard. I think I might end up wanting all of them. This guy can write. Newest fictional crush. Is that really is that a thing? Are we 12? I don't have fictional crushes. No. No. I haven't for a long time. Are there female characters that I appreciate and that I think are strong female characters? Absolutely. Crush? No. Newest favorite character? Well, I mean, I could say Conan, the barbarian. He may very well end up there. But I will also say Slippery Jim DeGratz from the Stainless Steel Rat was a really fun character, and he may end up being one of my new favorite characters as well. Book that made you cry, The Forever War. I don't cry to a lot of books. It wasn't a big cry, but it was definitely enough. It was touching at the end of the book. Book that made you happy. I mean, I think most of the books I've read. Right now, Conan is definitely making me happy. This is what I want in my fiction. Most beautiful book that you've got so far this year. The cover's not all that much to look at here, but it's got to be the landmark Julius Caesar. Again, friends, it's got notes, it's got maps and images, it's got everything you could want. All the Julius Caesar you can ever care to handle. And I bought myself also the landmark Herodotus, which again, for the same reason, it's got all this stuff in here. It's going to be wonderful. I want to get through both of those this year. What books do you need to read by the end of this year? Well, I just mentioned I want to read both of those landmark books by the end of the year. I've got Inkling books that I need to continue reading. I've got medieval monthly books that I need to continue reading. I've got the great Edgar Rice Burroughs read along with Michael K. Vaughan that I need to read this year. I've got 20 different graphic novel storylines, 2 of which I've finished, so I've got 18 more that I'd like to read, maybe not necessarily through the end of the year, but would like to continue reading those. I've got my Read Every Bradbury and Antonia Fraser going on. All of those are projects. But I did want to mention one new thing that I'm starting to kick around chipping away at. Steve Donahue, a channel whom most of you probably already follow, has 2 different video types that he's made in the past. He's made videos that are starter kits, and he's made Western canon kits. So the Western canon are books that you should read, that if you read all those books, that would give you a great foundation in literature and history. And I want to read all of those. And then he also has starter kits for various themes and topics and authors and events, historical periods. And those usually have 10 books that he recommends. Some have more that he drops in there as recommendations to read to get your foundational knowledge in that area, to give you a good broad overview, a starting place, if you will, to find out what interests you the most in there and to where you can dive further. And I want to read all of those too. I've made a spreadsheet. I've watched all of the videos. I've kept track of all the books he mentions. I've got probably close to 400 books to start chipping away at. That's a lot of books. I'm reading one of them currently with the Viking Age. Happened to be on his Vikings starter kit. And so I'm going to be chipping away at those. Because if these are what Steve Donahue says that you should read to get your foundation built, I am going to build that foundation. And then last question, best book to movie adaptation. I don't know if you're talking about this year. If you're not talking about this year, it's Lord of the Rings. I mean, Most Faithful, no. It's not a one-to-one transfer, but it is always Lord of the Rings. That trilogy did a fantastic job. You know, and I'll give props to A Knight's Tale on being a great movie adaptation of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, A Knight's Tale, which if you read the Knight's Tale and then you watch the movie, you'll see they're nothing alike, really. But it does have Chaucer as a character, and I really like that movie. So I'll go ahead and give that a shout out as well. So there's the mid-year Freakout book tag. If you have a BookTube channel and haven't done it yet, please do. We'd love to see it. I think there's no needing to tag people because, well, everybody's pretty much doing it. So jump on the bandwagon. Let's see what your answers are. I'd love to know, what have you loved? What have you hated? What's made you cry this year in your readings? And I look forward to seeing how some of these answers might change by the end of the year. So thank you for watching. Stay tuned. Tomorrow I'm going to have 2 tags brought to you, inspired by Steve Donahue. I'm looking forward to it. So look for the 2 different videos on tags dropping on Tuesday. Have a wonderful day.